us off, fucker.
And hello, how's it going, my lovely little weirdos? This is Everyday Nerds. I am your sexy outcast, and
Okay.
that is my co-host. And what is your name again? I am old and forgetful.
Yeah, sure you are. I'm the anime Shogun.
Anyways,
How much?
I know. Anyways, today we will be talking about video games and classic video games we actually enjoyed. I and I already have some questions, so yay me. Yay, I'm special.
Yeah. Yeah, you are.
Special ed. And that's how we get decensored. Anybody who knows that old song knows that old song. But anyways, I would like to ask you, what is one of your favorite classic games on PlayStation 1?
My first one,
Yeah.
and by far the favorite one, would have to be Twisted Metal.
That is a good game. I had played so many hours on that game. With my dad, and I think my older brother at the time. I don't remember. I know we played a lot of games on the original Xbox.
Yeah, I did some of that too, but
My first one would have to be Crash Bandicoot.
another good one.
It is. It is. So why is it your favorite? So why is Twisted Metal your favorite?
The Death and Carnage. Come on.
Yeah, to me it felt like a battle royale before battle royale. You just had a bunch of people just killing each other all the time. What was your favorite car?
What was it? I think it was the ice cream one with the clown.
Yeah, that was mine. That was mine too. That was mine too. That was fun. Mine would have to be for Crash Bandicoot. I loved the zaniness of it, and you never really heard the main character talk, as far as I remember. And
Yeah.
how it would switch point of views in some areas, which was, as a kid, could be difficult at times. But yeah, it was a pretty fun game, and I bought it on PlayStation 3 when they had PlayStation 1 classics on there, hands down. What's your second one? Excuse me.
It would have been Crash Bandicoot. I would have enjoyed Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah, I stole that one from you.
Yeah. Go to hell.
I think my second one would have to be Spyro.
That one was another good one.
It was. I liked ramming the enemies. It was always fun. What do you consider a game to be classic?
I mean, like the time frame or the time era,
Mm-hmm.
the graphics.
Graphics are a good, big one because there's a lot of classic ones nowadays that are that back then with graphics were pretty on point. Anything else?
Mm, no, like I said, I think that would probably be like the the graphics, probably the game mechanics, the time frame. You know, like look at the old can't say pixelated or 8-bit, but the old like Tomb Raider. That would have been my third game. Was like the old Tomb Raider.
Yeah, I remember watching my dad playing the old Tomb Raider and the old first Resident Evil one. My dad liked that game because of the puzzles, not because of the zombies, because of the puzzles. And I think I think also some story and imagination has to go into a great classic game.
That's kind of what I'm referring to with like the mechanics.
Okay, when I hear mechanics, I think of like all the stuff you have to do.
Well, that yeah, the story, but like like how complicated it was to do like jumps and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like you had to really know the tips. Like before they had cheat codes and cheat programs and like even the Game Shark books. You basically had to know what like the tips and tricks were.
Yeah, yeah. I remember playing a lot of hours, getting pissed off at a game, then leaving for a little while, coming back, doing it again.
Well, and so I think that's another part of it too, is the whole what's the word I'm looking for? How long you put into a game, just being stuck on like one part.
Yeah. Back in the classic games, you didn't have like infinite lives. You only had like a few lives, and you'd have to start over, and then
Yeah, stuff like that.
yeah, that is a. Those were hard. Those were interesting games. I would also probably have to say, oh, I just had it too. Yay, words. Probably not the story, but like how long the game actually is. Because I know Resident Evil, the first one, felt like hours, but I know it's only like, what, 8, 12 hours?
Something like that. Yeah.
But you could put a lot of hours into it. And not to mention, there are some classic games out there, like I know the Silent Hill games are famous for it. You play it a couple times, and then you'll get a secret wacky ending.
Right.
So you'll have multiple endings for some games that are just like that, which is amazing. And it's just, I don't, me personally, I don't think a lot of games have that much imaginative nowadays, whereas the classic games did. Because nowadays,
Right.
a lot of them are more towards microtransactions, getting it out as fast as they can so can make a quick buck and then fixing it later. Whereas some games are like, whereas the games back then was we're gonna do it, and they're gonna get all of it. So yeah. My third question would have to be, in your opinion, what do you think would make in going into the future a game being a classic? Like when
The
it
timetable.
understandable.
I think like I want to say maybe popularity. That might not be it, but I want to say popularity. Um, but probably not. I would have to probably say like the game mechanics, the story.
Hmm.
Um, like I'm sure years from now, you know, 10, 20 some years from now, people are gonna be like, "Oh, this game was a classic." Or for us, it was like the popular of the time.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of I think also it'll also depend on if it's still playable or not, because I do know like in 10, 20 years, if there's a new like multiplayer game out and Fortnite's no longer available, a lot of people are gonna be like, yeah, Fortnite was a classic, and a lot of us are gonna be like, it was just a multiplayer game with nothing in it. Whereas a classic game to us would be like the Callisto Protocol, Dead Space series.
Like yeah, some people now may think that Dead Space is a classic.
Yeah, and other stuff like that. So, what game do you think would be considered a classic going forward?
Hmm. I would probably. That's hard to say. Spyro's pretty classic right now. Crash Bandicoot's pretty classic right now. Uh I'd probably have to say like GTA 5 or not 5, GTA 3, Vice City. Those are probably going to be classics. As for right now, that's hard to say.
Yeah, I would. I think the first Mass Effect trilogies is a good contender for classic games. Um, maybe the was That show, that game they made a show about on HBO Max. I'm having a brain fart.
Last of Us?
Yes, thank you. Because it came out on PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
No, it was early PlayStation 4. One of the two. I think that has a good thing.
So The Last of Us came out PlayStation 3, and then they remade it again for PS4, I believe.
Yeah, they may have remade it a couple times. But that, I believe, would be a good contender for a classic, because I heard it's a really good story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard The Last of Us is a really, really good story. Oh, fuck. So, what's up?
Sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, what do you consider, what game in the, like, PlayStation 4 era would you consider classics? Or would you consider a contender?
War in the North, I think, could be considered a classic.
Yep, that was a good PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 era game from what I heard. I never got to play it.
I know a good PS2 game that I would say is a classic.
What's that?
Is the Lord of the Rings ones.
Yes.
Maybe not the Fellowship, but the Two Towers, the Return of the King, the Third Age. Like the Third Age is a classic for sure.
Mm-hmm. I did play Lord of the Rings: Return of the King a little bit. I did play that a little bit. That was pretty fun game.
That was my favorite.
I think PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4. I'd have to probably still say the original trilogy of the Mass Effect because it has a good story, has great mechanics. Graphics can be wonky sometimes, but that's with all games. And I think what makes a great classic like multiplayer game is how many times you're able to go back to it. Also, if we're talking like classic multiplayers, because there's still games that are classic multiplayers that are still going on, like StarCraft, Command and Conquer, all those classic games.
Oh yeah,
that they still go back to and people still enjoy because there's so much to do. Like I remember when I first became friends with you, you would play a lot of Command and Conquer. I forget which one, but I know it was one of them.
Command and Conquer, Red Alert was a big one.
Yep.
And Command and Conquer, I believe it was like 3 or 4. It was the Tiberium Wars.
Yep. I did play a little bit of StarCraft 2. That is a fun one. Always got my ass kicked by the Zerg. Especially playing against... I played against my older brother a few times. I think I won once. He kicked my ass, and that's just because he has a good... He has a system like you with and when you play your Command and Conquer, except his is with Zerg. You just multiply like fucking crazy, and then attack.
I do the same thing. The only difference is we'll talk about that in a different episode.
Yeah. I was just explaining a good classic. Yeah, but yeah. Those are some good classic multiplayer games. Whereas I will die on this hill. Fortnite is a sucky game.
You know, I think another game that could probably be thrown into classic is like Mortal Kombat.
I am beating myself up now because I didn't choose that.
Street Fighter. Street Fighter is a classic.
It is a classic. I never really got into Street Fighter, but that is a classic. I was always more of a Tekken guy.
And that was the other one, was Tekken.
Tekken was amazing. I remember one of Law's moves I used to love doing, which was he would run up the body, and then the last time he'd run up, he'd kick him in the face. And it was just a fun game. I hated Yoshimitsu. To this day, I hate Yoshimitsu because of my dad.
Well, I don't know if he's been confirmed for Tekken 8.
All I know is he's a pain in the ass. Never let that fucker sit down. I think they took that move out, but still. Never let that fucker sit down. Yeah, Tekken was a really good one, though. Tekken is a really, really good classic game that you can just put in the hours in. I know they added a lot. I know when because you can definitely tell it's a classic game because of uh they would do like other games like Capcom versus Marvel, uh Street Fighter versus Tekken, shit like that. I think there's also Mortal Kombat versus DC,
Yeah, it's Mortal Kombat versus the DC universe.
which was amazing. Injustice was in. I think Injustice also has a good run to be a classic.
Maybe.
It's
I
not gonna.
think it's gonna get stomped out by like Street Fighter, Tekken, and everything else. If I'm being honest with you,
Maybe
I'm not saying it's not a bad game, but I do think that it's got a lot of competition
it
compared
does.
to.
It does. Yeah, compared to the others, it really
Yeah.
does. But yeah, what's a hill you will die on for a classic game? Like something
Mm,
that's like if you're adamant that this classic game sucks, this classic game is the best. What is a hill you will die on?
mm, I think no matter what, the classics will. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. It's hard to say. I feel like the original, like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Tekken, uh, Crash Bandicoot,
Mm-hmm.
Tomb Raider. I think no matter what, those things will always reign supreme.
Yeah, I get it. I think a hill I will die on is the classic games will not hit as well on a like newer system. If you want like true nostalgia and everything like that, get yourself a classic PlayStation game, a classic PlayStation system, and go to town.
Yeah.
Because that's a hill I will die on. Because I know there's people out there. Oh, it's a lot better. Has they updated the graphics and all that shit, and to me it just looks the same. It's just a little bit more wonky, a little bit in like PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 shit, and I'm just sitting there like it's a lot better on the old classic systems. So yeah, that's a hill I'm willing to die on for classic games.
So then, how do you feel about how if they take good classic games and try to remaster them for new generations?
I don't mind it. Like if my only problem is I would love like classic remastered games to go to new generations so that way they have a chance to enjoy the stuff that we enjoyed as kids. But if they're all like, this is a new game, and I'm like that, new game, and I'm like that, and I'm like, no, it's not a new game, it's classic. Why not just come up with this thing going, hey guys, check out this classic game that we're remastering? And it's just stuff like that. Words with me and stuff are a bit weird. What's your opinion on that?
No, I feel like it'll never do justice, but I feel like it's a good attempt.
Yeah, it is a good attempt. What's your opinion on them remaking some of the classic games?
I don't think it's a bad idea, but at the same time, like you got to do it right.
Yeah, yeah. When they add stuff or take stuff out, I think it just ruins the game. Well, taking stuff out ruins it. Depending on how they go about it, adding stuff could either destroy it or make it better. Because I know a few people that are like when they added stuff in the remake of Final Fantasy VII, they said it made it a lot better. So yeah. Stuff like that. Words, yay! What are some classic games you'd love to see remastered? Or not loved, but like to see how they would go about it?
Right now, I think I would like to actually see them do what's the word I'm looking for? Like I want to see like a PlayStation 5 version of Twisted Metal.
That would be amazing. You and I would go so many hours in that game. Any other games?
Um, I think it would also be interesting if they did like if they took the old Tomb Raider.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I would like to see maybe a classic Final Fantasy VIII game remade. See how they would do it.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Maybe, maybe remake Resident Evil 1 or remake a Metal Gear Solid game.
That would be interesting.
I know there's a few people against remaking Final Fantasy VIII, but I would personally like to see how they would go about it, just to see the graphics and how they would go about the system,
Yeah.
the battle system, and all that stuff. How would you feel about them remaking War in the North?
Mm, it would be interesting for sure. But again, I don't know how I would feel. Like I said, they would have to do it right or do it by like the book for me to be like, yeah, that looks great.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I would be like, nope.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I really do. I'd be on the fence with a lot of those types of stuff too. How'd you feel if they remade a Command and Conquer game, or at least remastered a few of them?
If they, I would honestly probably prefer them to remake it,
Yeah.
but I would be okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Do you still play a lot of Command and Conquer?
Not as much. I don't know if my system can handle it. I'm sure it can, but at the same time, I've beaten it so many times that it's not as fun for me anymore.
I get it. Oh no, here comes this part at this time. Yay. What a surprise type of moments.
Yeah.
After you've played it like thousands of times. Yeah, those are. Yeah. I do. Okay, here's a classic game. What's your opinion of the Halo series as classic games?
I think the first two could be considered classics.
Yeah. How'd you feel about them doing the top down style with some of the games? Because I bought a few of them that were really cheap. Halo, Spartan Assault, and there was another one I bought for like $1 a piece. And I know they did Halo Wars that I never really played.
Yeah, I just didn't really get into those as much.
Understandable. It was mainly a money cash grab on some stuff, but I know some people enjoyed them. I personally would like to see maybe some classic JRPGs that were never released in America be released in America. Maybe like
Yeah.
yeah, because I do know that there are some like Dragon Ball Z games that were never released in America that were only released in Japan. Maybe there was some Final Fantasy games, or maybe there was some One Piece games that were released in Japan that were never released in America. I would love to see some of those. released in
Yeah.
Americas for classics. I know they had some Game Boy games for those games released here that weren't released here. Because let's face it, JRPGs, some of them are pretty fucking interesting.
Yeah, then you got indie games that are pretty interesting too, though.
Yeah, there are some really interesting indie games. I, I, I think gaming's now is a lot better back than it was. Don't get me wrong. I love the classic era, but you have people who can, like you or me, who can buy a system for on Steam to help make a game and release it on Steam years like a year later or whatever for like 99 cents or make it free just so you can play it. So people like everyday Joe Schmo can play it. Whereas
Right.
back then you actually you had to know a lot more stuff.
Do you remember for the classic games that you would literally like beg your mom or dad to go and buy it, and they were basically like, no, because it was like the ratings were so not like bad, but it was like so like M
Yeah,
or rated R or whatever.
yeah. Nowadays, kids 7, 8 years old playing fucking Grand Theft Auto 5.
Well, that or you got kids that are like fucking 4 or 5 playing Call of Duty, fucking being toxic as hell.
Yeah, that's why I don't like jumping on those types of games anymore.
I miss those games, but I don't care for how toxic it got.
Yeah, yeah. Those types of games did when they came out. They did, you know, release some toxicity into the air with some people. What did you think of back in the old classic, not Minecraft, but the old classic Call of Duty games days on the lobby when you jump into a lobby and you hear someone just blaring the music and it sounds like it'd be like right next to the fucking mic.
Mm, I don't know. I can't say too much.
I hated that with a passion. That's another hill I will die on. Is those guys need to fuck off. My favorite is the one. My favorite is the one where there's people out there that couldn't um, do comebacks or whatever. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
have a story for that, and there was on my Xbox 360 days. There was a guy that was fucking with another guy, and I gave the mic to my older brother because he was being an idiot, and my older brother started to laugh, and he goes, I'm like, what did he say? He goes, why don't you just? He said, why don't you just go do math? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what? Like the dude was toxic as hell, like completely toxic.
I believe it.
All right, well, I think we might end up calling it here. So, catch you guys on the later side. Hope you guys have a good one. Like I said, if you guys like our content, like, subscribe, follow, whatever you want to do. Leave a comment if you want.
Will you just shut the fuck up and hurry up and take us out of here?
You know what? I'll need your attitude, young lady.